as far as, yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are joining this call from today. I am Ola Akinwe, founder Boys Mentoring Advocacy Network here in Africa, and as well registered in the United States of America. I also like to be known as the humanitarian guru and a literacy activist. Now, the topic for today is looking at the demand side of trafficking men and boys. I mean, the demand side dynamics. 2-3 years ago, the case of human trafficking was rampant here in this part of the world where it belongs to, which is Africa. And I look at the underrepresented part of the human trafficking, which is men and boys. And I love to know what is really the drivers of this human trafficking in persons. And the first thing that really took me to go into this was when it got to the point of organ harvesting. I know a lot of people talk about human trafficking, but this area, the part of trafficking persons for extracting their organs, it was something like a lucrative business. And not many have been really talking about this. So in 2021, we started our series of global conversation on human trafficking as related to boys and men. And it was a conversation. There was there on the first conversation we had, and it was excellent, powerful. Now, every month we have a global conversations at our organization, Boys Mentoring Advocacy Network. And each month we look at everything that has to do with boys and men. So this August was so special to me because one, on the 30th of this month, which is going to be on Monday or 29th, we're going to have the World Day of Human Trafficking in Persons. And this is a day that we create awareness every year as it relates to human trafficking in persons. So I delved into my library. What is this about human trafficking? If there were no demands, would there be supplies? Obviously no. So what are the drivers that drive the supplies or the dynamics? So that was what led me to create, my team and I, we created that topic, and that is what we're going to be discussing today. Our work has been very extensive when it comes to mentorship. We have areas that covers literacy. We have areas where we use football to mentor boys. We have areas we use mathematics to mentor boys. We have the true colors. That's areas we use their individual creative talent to develop them. We have several programs. But today we are focusing on the demand side dynamics of trafficking boys and men. And I'm happy to welcome all of you. I'm very, very pleased to have you in this conversation. And I treasure your time greatly. And I want you to just take a moment to enjoy every conversation. Feel free to make contributions at any point where you feel necessary. And for the rest of the day, I'll be here with you and to enjoy this conversation as we create a synopsis from it that we're going to post out there that will be useful to advocates, to researchers, to individuals who are passionate about finding solutions to the human trafficking in persons. So having said that, I want to welcome you once again. I say thank you for joining the call as I hand over the platform to the moderator today in person of who is first. Ross, Glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's I wish I could say it was a joy to be here. It's a joy to meet you all. That we have to have this meeting at all, of course, is could be looked at as discouraging, and I don't look at it that way. This is a conversation that has needed to happen for eons and eons. And what we're going to be talking about today has not just suddenly blossomed. It's part of the human condition. And if we are, as a world community, going to make progress, we have to look at the value of human life and recognize the fact that in our systemic way of being both humans and parts of political systems, we have been, some of us have been immune to really coming face to face with the problems. Some of us are already in what others would call disadvantaged communities. We understand that. We understand that there are influences here, which the people who will be watching this, and believe me, I can tell you, guarantee that no matter what the size of the audience is that we have viewing today, this will be viewed many, many times. It will become a resource for those who are, quite frankly, ignorant of how widespread, how deep this goes, and what the effect is, both on the victims and those who don't realize that they are part of being the victimizers. So many of us, it's our own ignorance that allows us to be part of the demand side, and we don't even realize it. So I think this is such a hugely important topic. We're looking today at wonderful, wonderful people who I have just met about 10 minutes ago. But I've looked at your resumes. I've seen what you are going to be talking about today. And it's best that I not talk. You just know that I am a conductor by trade, and I am a therapist also. And so I'm very used to asking difficult questions, and I don't mind you giving difficult and pointed answers. And that's what we look forward to today. We're not here to dance around anything. We're here to just, as one of the country western songs is, you got to jump into the fire. And right now, it's time for us to jump into the fire. So let me just introduce Sylvia Uilani Matayoshi. Sylvia is from Hawaii, and she's now in Washington, D.C., where her responsibilities take her. Sylvia, introduce yourself, and if you would, in a couple of sentences, what is it that you do that's related to human trafficking, and just share with us a bit of your passion.
Thank you very much, Russ, and good morning, afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you also, Ola and B-Man, for this opportunity to visit with you today. I've been in the anti-trafficking space for over 27 years. My work started as a victim advocate and counselor on the Honolulu Police Department domestic violence abuse team. And from there, went on to work in major crimes, special victim units, and having run several special victim units for 2 different tribal police departments as a tribal police officer running victim units funded by the U.S. Justice Department. It was during that time that I became a part of a state anti-trafficking task force, the first state task force in the U.S., and that became a blueprint for other states and other countries. And because they saw what we were doing in our particular state, Washington at the time, I was sent on a 3-person anti-trafficking mission to Brazil to train South American lawmakers, local and national law enforcement, as well as lawmakers, to ensure that they were responding more proactively to victims of survivors of trafficking. And at the time they were a tier 3 country, recognized by the US State Department's Trafficking in Persons report. They wanted to elevate their status and have economic sanctions removed. And so I've done that type of work for a long time, and then ended up writing policy within the UN, and I'll speak about that in just a minute, that address the demand side as an actual member, advising ambassadors and sitting professionally on a Pacific Nation country assignment at UNCSW. The last part of my work has taken me since in the last 10 years as an operative, the first full-time female operative on a human trafficking rescue team, a team made up of a number of first responders, former military, Navy SEALs, CIA, HSI, who have an expertise in extraction, in rescue, and aftercare rehabilitation. And so this work, as you all know, is ever changing and evolving. And those of us that have been in the game essentially for decades know that it is up to us to make sure that our skills and abilities remain fluid and able to change and retrain, repurpose, meet the demands for this heinous crime. I've worked this issue multinational or agencies as well as countries, and I can tell you in all of my years of doing special victims units work, this is the most heinous crime, not to detract from the experiences of survivors in other crimes, but this is the most heinous crime. And it is just, the level of evil is so extremely deplorable that it literally will take, I always say, an all hands on deck approach to address and combat this issue. There's not enough help yet, and we need more people to join this fight and encourage full participation at every level to effectively combat this crime of human trafficking. Russ, would you like me to go into my comments today, or did you want to?
Actually, I'm sorry, I had myself muted. I want to thank you. I want to give Liz and Aman also a chance to say who they are, what their experience is, so we can just see the pieces of the puzzle. Sure. Because it's going to be a wonderfully complex integration as we move forward. Liz, take it away, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Elizabeth Quiros, and I am a lived experience expert. And so I do a lot of advocacy around human trafficking and bringing awareness, because it's important that we are the voice for the silence. We are the voice for those that are still out there. We are the voice for those that don't even know they're being trafficked. That's part of my story. Like, I didn't even know I was being trafficked when I was out there. My trafficking started when I was 15 years old. So it's important that we, for both women and men, for men as well, because there's so much stigma around that. And so it's important that we are on the front line, spreading awareness and being the voice for those that can't speak. So I do advocacy work in human trafficking. I also, like I said, I'm a lived experience expert. I currently co-founded an organization called Redemption House of the Bay Area with my partner, Lisa. So we're both survivors. So it's a survivor-led organization. And we're here in the Bay Area. So we're just bringing awareness, especially in San Francisco, Oakland, Santa Rosa, Marin, like all the areas in the Bay Area, we're bringing awareness. And we're given opportunities to speak on platforms like this. And it's just an honor and amazing to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. We appreciate you being here, giving us the time and your experience as a survivor. This is unique for most of us to have this direct contact. So thank you for being here. Aman, joining us from, is it India? Or yes, you're from India. Please, once again, take it away and introduce yourselves and what your connection is with this topic.
Yeah, definitely. Namaste from India. And wonderful work you all are doing. That's I just heard from LZ, Seri, and Ross. Wonderful you are working in the field of human trafficking. And my name is Dr. Aman Kumar, and I am working in the field of human trafficking since 2013, when I was completing my master's. After that, during my completion of the master's, I had also completed my PhD on the issue of cross-border human trafficking between India and Nepal, with a special reference to the role of non-governmental organizations. And since 2013, I'm directly working with the community and also with the students of the schools, colleges, and the different universities, because ultimately they are the victims, they are the target, they are the vulnerable in context of the India and also in context of the big trafficking. So since 2013, I am working for the children, especially from the remote areas of the different districts of the India, and also especially from the vulnerable community. Since you all know that in India there is a caste system, and there are so many other castes who are very vulnerable. So I am working with the vulnerable communities also by awareing them that what is human trafficking, what are the different drivers, what are the demand and supply, and what are the different mechanisms that how we can protect ourselves from big trafficking. And currently I am also doing 3 different projects in context of India and Nepal, that what are the new trends that emerge in context of cross-border trafficking between India and Nepal, what are the involvement of the new technologies, because in context of trafficking now we can say that it is just a faceless trafficking, no one can see who are going to be trafficked. So on this issue I am also working, and side by side I am also working on one of a very important project, that is ethnographic research, that I am also empowering the grassroots panchayati raj system, because in India we all know that in India there is a village system, and village like some government system is established by the government of India in each and every state. So I am working with that community, and I am also empowering them what is your role and responsibility, because ultimately the victims are being migrated from that particular village, that particular area. So I am also working on that with that community since 2000, since 2 years. So these are the few research projects on which I am working, and currently I am also associated with the Chanakya National Law University, who is associated in Bihar. This is the short intro for me. We will discuss later on when we will just start discussing on this.
Good. Thank you, Aman. Appreciate the introduction. And I'm going to ask, Gabi, I know you haven't been listed on anything, but I also do understand that you are intimately involved. And of course, you know Sylvia, and you're as an activist and understanding military and extractions and all of this sort of thing. Would you please give us just maybe 90 seconds, please, of introducing yourself, your background, and then we're going to launch into our individual presentations, okay? Gabi?
Okay, so thank you so much. My name is Gabby. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning for everyone that's joining us. So I have 17 and a half years of military experience. I was just recently medically discharged last year as a combat medic. Unfortunately, I don't have any experience in human trafficking, but after a retreat with aerial recovery, I'm trying to get my foot in the door, and I realized like this is something that I've been really, really hungry for, that I want to know more about and be an asset and make positive influences for the future of our generations or generations to come.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Russ,
Yes.
if you don't mind, I would like to do a quick introduction. I'm a teammate of Gabby and Sylvia's, actually. So if I may just do a quick intro.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jennifer, go for it.
My name is Jennifer Miller, and hello, everybody, and thank you for the invite. And then we also have Jeb Sadler and Greg Denning are also teammates of mine. And we're part of Aerial Recovery Group, which is it's a humanitarian group, and we focus on natural disaster, man-made disaster recovery work, as well as anti-human trafficking. And so one of the things that we always look at are when we go out into natural disasters or any sort of disaster response, we always look at the factors of potential human trafficking that can occur. And I was on the team that responded to Turkey when the earthquakes happened. We actually had a couple of gentlemen over in India doing work in the anti-trafficking arena that then flew over to Turkey when we did that disaster response. The team had also gone into Ukraine and worked with rescuing women and children from the front lines to get them back into safety and security. So we're very excited to be here, want to learn and contribute as much as we can and tackle this horrible problem. So thank you for having us.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you and the two gentlemen also that have joined you part of the team. I'd like to start and number one, just a little bit of house rules. It's just because our microphones are very sensitive. If you're not talking, please have yourself muted. It just makes it easier for the rest of us. All right. And if you need to jump in quickly, you can if you're on a laptop, you can always just press the space bar and instantly your mic is back on. So feel free. After we hear from people, we're going to have the opportunity to do Q&A. And rather than wait for all the questions at the end, we may entertain one question each in between, just so that we can keep the flow going. There are so many factors that contribute to human trafficking, but to look specifically at the demand side, what is it? Is it cultural? Is it political? Is it simply greed? Is it only financial? What are those demand side elements that are driving this problem? Obviously, it's been here for centuries. Here we are, a group of activists desiring to make a difference. So what is it that from time immemorial has created this problem? Sylvia?
Thanks, Russ. I just wanted to also thank my colleagues from Air Recovery who've joined this call and, recognize that there's so many facets to combating this issue. We could sit here for, I always say, hours and days and continue on in this conversation and just barely skim the surface of what needs to be addressed. And so as we try to kind of scale down our comments to be very specific today, I just want to mention to our viewership that what we're talking about today is just kind of the tip of the iceberg about what it means to address demand of boys and men. About 20 years ago, I sat at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. I was an advisor, human rights and advisor to a number of UN ambassadors, and I sat representing Marshall Islands country, the country of the Marshall Islands, and I co-sponsored policy along with our ambassador with the United States mission at the UN that addressed the demand for trafficking victims, especially children. At the time, it seemed to be that there were a number of very difficult prosecutorial gaps in our response. At the time, I was managing the day-to-day operations of a human trafficking response team with Seattle Vice Unit, Police Unit, King County Sheriff's Department, FBI, the Refugee Women's Alliance, and the Asian Pacific Islander Women and Family Safety Center. I was the manager of that coordinated team. And one of our challenges was at that time that there were gaps in being able to prosecute in these cases. And we realized that if this was the experience in the US, in talking to our international counterparts, we realized that the gaps were even broader throughout the world. And so we tried to make sure that our experience in trying to lobby and ensure that legislation was effective, we then shared the drafts and our language to make sure that as many countries were buying into the idea that we have to address the demand side of this and be able to go after those who solicit, that are part of the problem. When we say, is this a political issue? Is it financial? Is it minorities? Is it, disadvantaged people from challenging backgrounds? I will tell you that it's all of that and more. There is not one person that's immune from anti-trafficking, something that I don't share often, but I will share this in this context of the conversation because it makes a point. 7 years ago, I was a tribal police officer running the day-to-day victim responsibilities of a victim unit. 3 Mile, at the time had been working as a subject matter expert, anti-trafficking subject matter expert throughout the world, not just in the US. Having trained at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, I was on the faculty there on a training Indian country training program, and done other work besides having been elected and leading 5 different law enforcement task force groups. Along with that, I have several children, and one of my daughters at the time, age 16, was abducted from a local movie theater 3 miles from my police department. This was a child who was trained in self-defense. She came to many of my conferences and talks. She had aspirations to become a prosecutor. She had mentors who were prosecutors that were working with her and wanting to support her goals and dreams. She was abducted, and for 7 hellish days, probably some of the worst days of my life ever, we sought to find her. And she was abducted and bought and sold by 2 known adult local gangs, criminal syndicates. And it took 7 days before we were able to rescue her and get her to the hospital. She's never quite recovered. And the reason I share that with you is because I'm saying to you that if this could happen to my child in America, 3 miles from my police department, to a child that's been trained, aware, physically, capable of being vigilant, it can happen to anybody. And so I always say to parents, I don't want people to be afraid, and I'm not an alarmist, but I want you to also encourage people to remember the realities of those that prey upon people, and anybody can be potentially vulnerable at any time in their lifetime. Human trafficking is quickly becoming the #1 industry in our world economy, surpassing the trade of arms and drugs. In the 80s and 90s, the drug trade was the #1 commodity in our world economy. And then our systems and legislation had become so much more sophisticated in being able to take down not just the frontline pushers, but the entire organized criminal networks around drug trafficking. And so it became more and more risky, less lucrative because of the risks and the challenges. Since 9/11, our law enforcement systems then went after, with a vengeance, the trade of arms. And our systems transnationally became very astute and able to more effectively communicate, monitor, and intercept weapons as they were being traded cross borders. Hence, that pushed the trafficking of people to the forefront. There are more people enslaved in the world today, and I know I'm preaching the choir, for the effort, for the consideration of those that will watch this from our communities. I would like them to know that human trafficking is quickly becoming the #1 industry in our world economy, surpassing drugs and arms. There are more people enslaved in the world today than the transnational African slave era. Modern day slavery, as we know it, is alive and well. So I would like to just give one example of how fast this crime, I call it, having worked in major crimes for 30 years, I call it it is a crime of opportunity. When Jakarta hit, about 18 years ago, Jakarta, India tsunami hit. Within hours on the dark web, we intercepted communication between 2 traffickers, South Asian traffickers in the triad, who were willing to offer, barter and sell, trade 300 children within hours of the tsunami. So the importance of what the aerial crew has shared here today to talk about how important it is to be aware and mindful of this crime of opportunity in times of disaster is really critical, because in a disaster, as you know, the first thing to go down is infrastructure, and governments are scrambling to do basic tasks. The second thing to happen after that is the most vulnerable are fair game. And so in our work as first responders, we need to continue to talk about how we're going to provide that level of top cover and security and safety, as well as trying to make sure that those who are most vulnerable are protected. The to be able to ensure the health and safety for those that are trafficked or experience of being trafficked. I always say that knowledge is power. The most important piece to this work, there's so many moving parts to that, but the most important piece, I believe, is awareness building, education, being able to train people and help them understand what are the risk factors. If they are, and I say everybody's vulnerable, but in talking to boys and men, I think it's important to remember to give them the language of anti-trafficking. Liz, I'm so excited and thankful that Liz accepted the call to be on this presentation and panel today. Liz is an amazing powerhouse advocate, survivor, leader in the US here, and the founder, she said, of Redemption House in San Francisco. It is imperative to our conversations to include survivors wherever we go. I am a part of a really great group of survivor sisters called Boss Nation, and I'm so thankful for them because I've learned so much in this process that's helping me round out my practice and my work and perspective, to always remember to include survivors in all that we do. Survivors, I believe, as we sit, with my distinguished panelists, have recognized expertise, but I always say survivors are the finest experts, really. And so include them in our conversations. They are the leaders in this movement, and their voice is imperative that we listen to them, include them in our conversations, our advocacy, our lobbying, our legislation, our protocols, our missions, to make sure that we get it right. And the only way to truly get it right and serve victims well is to bring along survivors and recognize their leadership. Contrary to popular perception, many male survivors of human trafficking, they may present as reaching out for other services. Some of them may not even identify as victims of trafficking. They simply may not have the language of trafficking. In the United States, there are a number of humanitarian remedies afforded to trafficking survivors that come through our borders and are able to stay. If they're not able to repatriate for whatever reason, once intervention happens, and most of them are involved in a type of prosecutorial process of their offenders, when it's not safe for them or possible for them to repatriate, and they are able to stay in the US, they qualify for a number of humanitarian visas. In the last 2 years, 53% of those receiving the TNU visas, the majority of them, 41% represented males. And the other thing is, while organized criminals who run this industry do not hand over their statistics to us, it's very difficult to find to nail down a specific statistical finding. However, we know that as we are able to provide more education, more outreach around the issue of trafficking, that hopefully the goal is to have more men and boys better served, prevented from entering into this trade of trafficking, whether it's labor, sex trade. Unfortunately, organ harvesting, people say, does that really happen? And we know for a fact that it does. We know that they will be better served through that education. And the final thing I want to say is, people say, how can we end human trafficking? And that is a huge question. But I feel like sharing one of the most important remedies is for all victims of trafficking is to provide viable economic alternatives, education, and training for people, especially people that have significant social vulnerabilities, so that they are not easy prey to traffickers. Thank you.
Sylvia, thank you. Quite obviously, your expertise is wide and deep, but it all focuses still on the individual, that victim that needs desperately to find a means of moving forward and moving out of, and actually in the very first place, to avoid having been trafficked in the first place. How do we do that?
Right.
This is critically important. I appreciate the fact that you also have recognized that. Did you say 41% are male, rather than what most people think of as human trafficking as being female, the weaker sex, quote unquote, that
Right.
most vulnerable. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to remind all of us that look at today. This is an amazing day. If you are in gallery view, you see here we are, we're all from around the world. Exactly today, 50 years ago, was the March on Washington with Martin Luther King. August 26th, 1963. This is the day that Dr. King uttered the famous words, "I have a dream." I think all of us, as we continue to move into this, we do have a dream. That being just as strong as the voting rights, the human rights of African Americans in our country and all marginalized peoples everywhere, that there is a time for activism from all of us, even if it is showing up to have your voice heard. This is all that politicians understand. And so those of us who are in a position like Sylvia, survivors, and those of us who are simply coming at this as, I don't know how I can help, I don't know what I can do, please at least educate me. So Liz, we're going to jump over to you now. As a survivor, and obviously, you know, we spoke of the female side of this, and that, well, obviously, ladies are more vulnerable. Well, this is a huge stereotype that really does not pan out. All of us are, men and boys also. What contributes to their vulnerability? Because if you say that if there is no supply, well, maybe the demand will dry up. Wouldn't that be nice? So there is a two-prong here. What is contributing to the vulnerability? I think that's key. And because this is what Ola and B-Man is actively doing, creating people who are disciplined, principled, responsible, and visionary as it relates to mankind as a whole and themselves in the big picture, rather than being lost. So what are the contributing factors that create the problem? And from your standpoint, as an activist, survivor, how is it that the men and boys are brought into this? What is the lure, or what is the demand that it creates the need for this meeting that we're having now? Liz?
Yes. So I first want to start off that human trafficking does not discriminate. You know what I mean? Like both men, boys, women, girls, like you said, everybody is vulnerable. Anybody with a background of trauma or that has vulnerability that predators prey on can be lured into trafficking. So there's no discrimination there. And so in my experience as a survivor of human trafficking, you know, I want to give a little background of where I come from. So that way you can see the vulnerability, the factors that play into somebody being lured into human trafficking. And this is the same for men and boys as well. So when somebody's coming from poverty, like for example, in my story, I came from poverty. I came from an abusive household. There was physical trauma and sexual trauma. And I was also placed in the foster care system because of what I've been through. And when you're in systems like that, and when you're placed in foster care systems that are also abusive, and you come from poverty, and you come from abuse and sexual abuse and even mental abuse, there's so many values you develop, right? And so many there's low unhealthy coping skills. There's low self-esteem that you develop to where you feel you can't talk to anybody and nobody's going to hear you. And when you do mention it to somebody and you're not heard, or you're dismissed, or even with law enforcement, when you feel like that law enforcement is supposed to help you and that doesn't happen as well, there's just so many factors that play into where somebody feels like, okay, well, I can't talk or I can't reach out for support. So where am I going to go? Sometimes that eventually people they turn to the streets, right? So in my story, I turned to the streets because of my trauma growing up. Because when I was in foster care, the abuse that was going on in foster care, because when I did reach out to law enforcement, I wasn't heard. And so I turned to the streets, and that's how I was lured to trafficking at the age of 15. And I grew up in a fatherless household. A lot of men and boys grow up in a fatherless household. So they don't have that role model. They don't have that protection. They don't have that love. So they feel, okay, let me turn to the streets. And when you go to the streets are they're gonna prey on your vulnerability. There's so much predators out there, gangs, drug dealers, there's purchasers out there that prey on that vulnerability. And when you're in survival mode, you do what you got to do to survive, right? You do what you got to do to get the money to survive. If you have an addiction, and that's what happened to me. I was on the streets for 12 years, in and out of correctional facilities, addicted to methamphetamines. So because I was trying to numb out the pain that I was going through, because everything I had developed as a child and all the principal values, low self-esteem, trauma, PTSD, depression, I was trying to numb all that. So when I picked up the addiction of meth, that's what I was doing. I was numbing. And predators prey on that vulnerability. So that's what happens to men and boys as well. And they have trauma, unresolved trauma, or if they have mental health that's not diagnosed, and they're out there on the streets surviving, predators prey on that, and traffickers prey on that vulnerability as well. And there's so much stigma and there's so much stereotypes around men and boys are not supposed to talk, right? Like they're supposed to be tough. They're supposed to be macho. They can't talk about their trauma, or they can't say, hey, I'm being trafficked. They can't say that because there's so much stigma and stereotypes around that. So that's why they stay in silence. When I was working, when I got my healing, I got out of that life and I became a drug and alcohol counselor. I was working with clients, and one client identified as being a trafficking victim. He was a male, and he identified as being a trafficking victim. He said he was lured into trafficking because of a woman showed him. So he was living in a hotel and he had an addiction of meth, and to supply his addiction and to have a roof over his head, he connected with another female that was also in the sex trade, and he showed him the ropes. And so this is how he started to survive. And this is under a poverty sex. And so he started to survive, and he started to do what he had to do to supply his addiction and to get a roof over his head. And purchasers prey on that vulnerability. So they prey on that. And the fact that he even stepped up and said something about what he was going through, I was very proud of him, because a lot of men and boys don't do that. They don't talk about it. But because I was sharing my story in a safe environment, it led him to talk to me. So when we share our stories, people are going to start stepping up and sharing their stories and talking about what they've been through as well. So that's why it's important. Like I like what Sylvia said, like giving these spaces for survivors to talk on, because it encourages other survivors to step up and talk. And so in my like I said, in my experience, all that trauma lured me into human trafficking, and I got stuck and stayed in that lifestyle for years because of the mindsets I had, because of the values and the principles and the low self-esteem I had, because of the addiction and lack of resources. I was stuck in that cycle for a very long time until my last arrest. And then I was able to utilize resources when I was incarcerated. And so for men and boys that are being trafficked and that are in that lifestyle, or they're going to be lured into that lifestyle, there needs to be an abundance of resources. There needs to be people that understand and are not going to shame them or give them any, or make them feel guilty, or say it's your fault, or man up, you're supposed to be a man. We need to not do that as a community and embrace them, so they can come and be in a safe space and start talking. Like, we need more leaders on the front lines that are survivors of human trafficking, that are men and boys, and talk about the trauma so other leaders can step up as well. So we just need more resources, more understanding, more compassionate, and end the stigma and stereotype around human trafficking of men and boys.
Liz, thank you so much. The power of your delivery is based on such personal, direct understanding this problem from the inside. And so what I've heard you say is that the demand side is really for both women, females, and males. Mm-hmm. And basically, we're talking about sex trade, we're talking about organ harvesting, we are talking about cheap labor. Mm-hmm. And what they are really offering is a way out. They think the victims think they're being offered a way out.
Yep.
Finally, someone is listening to me, and they don't realize that they are being hugely victimized.
Mhm.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I am thrilled to let everybody know that Bishnu has joined us, and I'm assuming from the hospital. Earlier today, his son was in I believe it was his son was in a traffic accident. We hope and pray that all is going well with that, but I'm going to take the opportunity, because Bishnu, you probably do need to run or to attend to duties there, but my name is Russ Fox, and you can see the names on the screens of everyone else. We are unfortunately gathered to talk about this very difficult problem. However, we are privileged to do so. So, Bishnu, if you could introduce yourself, and please share with us your connections with, yes, human trafficking, but if you could try to organize your thoughts specifically around men and boys, and what are the demands that drive that side? Bishnu.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thanks, and sorry to say I was little bit late due to my friend was in a hospital, and that's why. And so, thank you all of you. My name is Vishnu Sapkota from Nepal. I'm a researcher in the human trafficking, and as well as I'm a lecturer in university level and social activist in Nepal. I'm talking about the two sides in the human trafficking. In my perspective, I see the two sides in the human perspective. One side, human trafficking is the final stage. Trafficking is the final stage. I'm talking about that. And before that, what are the risk factors to be going to trafficking? We discuss in parallelly two paradigms. One is trafficking, another one is risks of trafficking. Trafficking is the final stage. If they are trafficking anywhere, like labor trafficking, sex trafficking, organs trafficking, and skin trafficking, like that, these are the things are the trafficking. After that, they rescues the survivor, and then how we protect in the survivor, one thing is important, and how we empower them is important. How we resilience them in the normal life, in the trauma, psychosocial counseling, formal education, and income generate training, and so many things. These are the component are included. Those who live in like a rehabilitation center or some that, in the context of like Nepal is different from the other country, because of here is the Hindu idealism, caste system is that they play the vital role in the human trafficking. Those who are already been the victimized and already been the trafficking. That's why we need to talk about the resilience. After that, reintegration, and if they not good reintegration, and if they don't get the resilience means like the holistic development, like to become a holistic development. It is minimize the trauma, psychosocial counseling, and so many things are included in the resilience. That's why we need to talk about like that. In the resilience, first we talk about like the social support in the society, how society perceive in the survival. That is important. Society are the different in the different type of the society. In the context of Nepal is the patriotic society. That's why they feel, they talk, they perceive like the differently in the other country. And how we provide the positive coping mechanism for the survivor, we must discuss the things in that positive coping mechanism, like how we provide the how we minimize the mental stress and so many things. And after that, we discuss about like access of resource. If we don't have the access of resource, how became reintegrated in the society? That is difficult for the survival, living the life. That's why we must discuss in the that part of like a survival perspective. And another one is trauma informed care. How we cure the trauma. It means like a healthcare service, how we provide the healthcare service, physical health, mental health, and emotional health, safety care and choice, keep privacy, trust, ordinance, and family collaboration. These are the things is the important, though who are already victimized. And empowerment advocacy, how we talk about the empower and advocacy, building the confidence, how we give to the uh, provide in a rehabilitation center or shelter home in building the self-confidence. That is important. Rising awareness and making leadership, that is also important for the perspective of the survivor. And psychosocial counseling and human right perspective, we talk about the like a human right perspective. And positive family relation. Rest of the survivor don't get in a positive family relation, because of family also don't achieve this kind of the survival. That is the problem in the reintegration and to become a normal life, as well as and supportive, so self-supportive environment. They did not get the self-supportive environment. That's why how we provide the self-supported environment for the already being a victimized in the people, like they're the peer support, counseling, justice, and otherwise, and encourage and safe care. Because of lack of the encourage and safe care in the like a positive awareness and stress reduction meditation, these are the things are the lacking for the those who are already victimized. And that's why they didn't get these kind of the things I have mentioned, several points. If we don't give if we did not care that kind of the several thing, they became a re-victimized, they became a re-trafficking. That's why we talk about like we talk about like the two perspective in I have already mentioned that. And like sometime we have to provide the economic support in the like to start the business, some business, because of in our content, in our socio-cultural pattern, in the context of Nepal, like a socio-cultural pattern, like a patriarchy society, like women are the a second class of the human being. That's why male are always dominate like a male, always dominate by the male. That's why we need to the holistic service like the mental support and vocational support, legal support, government support, community support. These are the things are the necessary, though who are already victimized. These are the things. Otherwise, community connection is the most important. If they don't have a community connection, they don't they again re-victimize. That's why we talk about the two two type of the paradigm. One is the survival perspective, another one is the risks of trafficking. What are what how what kind of the people, what kind of the men and women, and like not only men. Trafficking is not only men, not only women, it means girls. Because of a trafficking means like a human being, we talk about like a human being. That's why second perspective is the risks of trafficking. What are they? What are the what factor play the vital role to pushing the trafficking? First one, in my research, in my experience, in my like experience and the research said that one is the those who are the vulnerable children, all the vulnerable children, like the and beside that, in the those who are the orphans, they don't have the mother and the father. This kind of the children, and as well girl children or boy children, they are the 99.9% are highly risks of the demand for the trafficking. Like sometime labor trafficking, sometime they are sex trafficking, sometime like kidney trafficking and organs trafficking and the skin trafficking and like that. And one research says that in like southern Asia is like in the Nepalese skin are the very popular for like trafficking. That's why that's the this part of this part also like very risks. And other one is the single parent child, though who don't have a mother and a father. This means the this kind of the children are the very risk zone, like they are going to school, they are going to somewhere. If they don't have a mother and the father, they did not get the proper love and affection, as well as her mother and the father have a stepmother and a stepfather. In that situation, they don't get the proper caring for the children. In that situation, another side is stage of development is growing us in a man is the 22 years in the stage of development, girls in the 20 year. That is the natural process in that part of the children are like a attraction, like a opposite sex. In that time they are not a good relationship, and they play the they play the um, they play the like a different kind of a false love and like these kind of things. In that situation, they don't know, then they became a victimized. And so third one is the still children. I already mentioned that this kind of the children. And in the context of Nepal, and not only context of Nepal, like all over the world, those who are the very poor background, poor hygienic background, and socio-cultural background, and economic background, and family background, these kind of the children are the highly risks of the trafficking. We must concern like this kind of the children. And another one thing is like caste system. You know the very well in the context of Nepal, India, like South Asian country like Nepal, India, and Bhutan. Like this country has the caste system. In that situation, they are direct or indirect, like pushing in the demand side. That's why we must discuss in that part. And before that, these are the two things. Are the one is the trafficking in the final stage. In there are the we are protection, like so many things. Another one is the risk of trafficking. After that, what is the solution? No, what is the solution? Yeah, we need to discuss about the solution too. But if we discuss about the problem, if we discuss about like challenging, if we discuss about the issue, that is not the fulfill like our the discourse. We must discuss about the what is the solution. That's why we need to collaborate. One thing, we need to collaborate. We need to make the global team, those who are working in the field of the trafficking, not only boys, not only girls. Trafficking is the crime. Yeah, trafficking in the third old crime. One is the gun, second one is the like this thing, and third one is the like human trafficking. That's why we need to discuss about like solution. One thing, we have to conscious to provide the awareness. Awareness is the most important. Awareness is the most important part. And other one is we have to make the group like a children club, boys club, girls club. It means like a children club, boys club. We have to give the empower, enhancing the leadership, though who was stuck in the community, though who make the watchdog in the community. And they became a go somewhere in the club, schools, and like social organization, they became a discussion like the discourse about the what are the risks, what are the challenging. That's why we need to provide the training for them, making the leadership for the children's, and making the leadership for the girls. If they became a leadership, they became a ambassador in the community. Though who live in the village, rural area, they became a ambassador like the community, like a school and community, like a, and this kind of the things, like a change maker. And that's why we can go through like that. And other one is we have to think about the income generating program too, because of some of them children don't have it is difficult to buy some school uniform. It is difficult to buy some stationery like the school supply. In that situation, we have to provide the how we became provide them in a like a income generating, because of like a groupism farming and groupism, goat keeping, like making the group and to provide the some small business like that. That's why that is that's why we discuss about like the in the three part of the trafficking. If we do this kind of things, not the eradicated, but it is became a some intervention like the community level. Yeah, this much
Yes.
only.
You're bringing up some incredibly important issues that, for me,
Yeah.
before you came on, I introduced myself as a musician and also as a therapist.
Sorry,
And
sorry. Just a minute. I may add some little. At present, I'm studying in the doctorate philosophy in the field of human trafficking in the context of Nepal. In my area, this is the first study. Beside that, I'm working in the intervention in the school level too. I have connected, I have provided the I have provided like some of the student scholarship program. I have given a like the 55 student have the school uniform, school supply, school house dress. That's my personal effort. I am searching like those who are the helping hand, because of I have already mentioned that in the context of Nepal, like a caste system, patriarchy society, so many things are the manipulate like pushing the human trafficking in a direct or indirect demand supply that. And other side, in the context of Nepal, rest of the youth are migrate in the foreign labor world. In that situation, her and his children don't getting the love and affection, don't getting the love and affection, don't getting the proper care, don't getting the proper nutrition. In that situation, those who are the trafficker, they easily manipulated, they
of course,
easily manipulated, and they easily making the false love from them. That's why it is difficult for that's why I will I request to you, please join us, join me. We can work together to to make the social transformation, to end the child exploitation and trafficking. If we eradicate the child exploitation, obviously trafficking is minimized. If we don't eradicate the child exploitation, trafficking is gradually increased. That's why we make the strong, to make the good team in the globally, and then we form the one organization to work in the those who are the very rich country. We can intervene and see the model for the safe blaze program. Safe blaze program, we make the safe blaze program. Every people make the safe blaze program. How trafficking, how child exploitation. That's why please join us. Thank you.
Vishnu, thank you so much. Absolutely. Ola, you have here in Vishnu an absolute identical twin. What you are doing in Nigeria, Ishmael, yourself, what you're doing in the communities here, what we're all trying to do is to get in the front of this problem. We're talking about survivors, and we must provide the services that you outlined, all the counseling, all the safe places, helping to reintegrate people into society. In addition to that, what's so obvious to me is that what we must do is to provide all of those resources before the problem goes into human trafficking. We have children without parents. We have children in poverty. Whether it's called a caste system or it's just a not well discussed sense that certain groups are either more advantaged or disadvantaged, and we change our language and our psychology. All of that needs to be addressed on the supply side, and then possibly the demand side will be diminished. Now, we need to go right now to hear from Aman Kumar from India. And although India and Nepal are fairly close together, and you both have caste systems, I imagine there are possibly some differences in approach, in resources, but here we've come face to face with the problem, and that is the demand side is strong. I think we have kind of identified what it is, and that it preys on poverty, it preys on lack of self-esteem, it preys on the sense that there is no hope, and they offer false love, false hope, and then end up victimizing these kids. How does this play out in India? And specifically, if we could, concentrate on men and boys. Aman, please join us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And well said by Vishnu. You are a wonderful presentation you have, and you wonderful. You had said the right thing in context of Nepal, because I had also stayed 2 years in Nepal for my PhD. Yeah, very authentic things you have shared at this platform. Now, in my past experiences, since 2013, I am working in this field. So, from my past experiences, I will share some of the best practices which I am doing in the context of that how we can protect, how we can eradicate, how we can minimize the issue of human trafficking, and what I am doing in the field via research, via my study, by teaching students, by some sort of such mechanism, what sort of things I am doing in the field. And at first, I am just explaining the new trends which are emerging in India in context of trafficking of men and children's, especially a male candidate, that how they are being trafficked, what are the reasons of trafficking, and in which fields they are being trafficked. The first thing I want to say that for the cheap labor, because recently we had already discussed that if anyone talks about the human trafficking, the whole scenario, the whole ideology, the whole concept is stick to the female child or female women and female candidate. No one is a very little group is talking about the male and the male or the man. But I want to say that as much as female is vulnerable, male counterpart, male and the boy is also more vulnerable than the female. But the lacuna is that even the law which we have at national and international platform, each law is also a female centric. Each law is also talking about the female. If I am taking the example of one act, POXO Act, which is in India, this law is also just creating in such a concept that a female is at a center point. But where is male child? Where is boy? A very few group is talking about a boy and a man, and this is a wonderful platform that here we are uh, just discussing on the issue of the male and the boy. So in India, for the cheap labor, boy and the male are being trafficking for the organ harvesting, and also for some of the sex tourism, some of the hotspots in India, just like Goa and some of the districts which are just as a very hot tourist places. So these are the three: organ harvesting, and for the cheap labor, and also for the sex tourism. These are the some of the three three field in which boy and the men are being trafficking. What are the reason behind it? If I came to know about the reason is that the when I was just taking interview of one of the male victim. He was a boy of 14 years from one of the village of a Bihar, and I am communicating with him that what are the reasons why he just by which mechanism he was just moved from village to a multi with some other districts. So he said that attraction, because there is no uniform development in our country. So one of the main reason he told me that I am from a village, and when I used to see a television, a TV, a new picture of a city, so it leads to me a curiosity that if I will move that place, I will have some more opportunity. So this attraction towards the big city just compel that boy to move from that place. And the second reason I came to know that the the competition between the neighborhood in the villages. If any child, if any man is working in city and he is earning some money for his family, then this led to the competition between that side by family, that he, if the man or the boy is working in the city, if then I can also work for my family in the city for earning some money. So attraction and competition, these are the some generic things which I came to know after my regular interaction with the survivors. And also one important thing is that the domestic servitude, because as a globalization, men and women both are working, then that family needs some sort of servants, some sort of uh, individual who can just stay in their houses to look after their children. So this domestic servitude is also one of the main reason for the trafficking of the, especially a male children, that who can live in that elite class group family to look after their children. So these are the some of the reasons. And by attraction and comparison between the friends, and general reasons, as the Vishnu has already discussed, that the caste system, poverty, lack of resources, these are the some of the general issues of the trafficking, as we all know that. So these are the types of trafficking and the reasons of being trafficking of the male and the boy from the village to the cities. And what are the good practices which I am doing in my field? One of the most important thing is that I am working with the village community level uh, leaders who are being elected by that people of that village, and I am just empowering them, and I am also telling them what are the what are their role and responsibilities. I am also working with them by telling that you have to make one migrations register, that how many peoples are working out of your village, and time to time you have to follow them. Third, that you have to made one village community level vigilance committee, that you have to monitor all the peoples who are working out of the village in different industries. So, and what are the different toll-free numbers government had provided to you. These are the some things by which I am regularly empowering them by doing their capacity building. After that, I am also working with the children of that school, of that village, from which maximum children and men are being migrated to the different cities. That if what is the causes of trafficking, what are the types of trafficking, what you have to do if you are being trapped in such type of situations, what are the different government agencies we are working for that. So by this way, I am also working with the children, so that making them just aware, making them aware about this human trafficking. And I think one of the most important thing is that research is lacking in this field. When I started doing research in 2013, I had saw a very little literature was available in context of human trafficking in India. But now these things are growing day by day. It is a good sign. But my suggestion is also that there should be a academic curriculum in each and every school. They should teach the children's and their parents that what is trafficking. There should be some particular and some important subject in their schools. Should be taught by the teacher. So curriculum and academic involvement of curriculum and academic in this field is very important. And also, as Vishnu had said, that there should be a collective representation on this issue. Lots of organizations, lots of people, lots of researchers is working in this field, but they are working independently. There is no any segregation of data in context of India and also in context of Nepal, that how many people are being trafficked, what is the sex ratio, how many male are being trafficked, how many children are being trafficked, how many girls are being trafficked. There is no any authentic data. Even lots of organizations are working that, but the data of the organization is saying some different things, and the data of the government agencies is saying some different things. It is a very big lacuna that there is no any centric data of any country, that how many girls, children's, category wise, age wise are being trafficked from their region. These are the some of the big lacuna which I came to know after my doing lots of activity in this. And also I want to say that every time we used to organize such type of events, such type of conference, and we used to discuss the problems. And Vishnu had said one of the a very good thing, that we have to approach on our positive attitude, that yes, everyone know that what are the reasons of trafficking, but what are the best practice they are doing for their eradication. They should also discuss on such type of platform. And one of the most important thing that Zelly and Eliza had discussed, survivor-based approach. If any community, if any organization, if any such activity is not led by any survivor, then ultimately the main goal should not be attained by that things. Because even in my team, I had also put some of the survivor of the human trafficking, because they know what are the real situations they had faced when they are victim, and what are the different strategies they had adopted for being just for the rehabilitation to reintegration. And society acceptance is very important. If society is not accepting that individual, that victim, the problem of re-trafficking and the same in that situation, the victim, that rescued victim is going to be trafficked again. These are some of the issues which I just mixed to each other, because I have not come with some sort of systematic way of presentation, but I try to just tell what the things I am doing in the field, just in a few minutes. So
thank you so much, Aman. No, thank you. You've put it out there very clearly that we all understand that there is demand. We understand what those demands are. And I might say there is one that has not been discussed yet that is very important in some parts of the world, particularly in Africa. As I have connections in Africa, I'm kind of aware of this. and that the trafficking of men, and particularly boys, abducted to be boy soldiers in militias. This is a huge problem. I think it was, I believe that everybody, but men and boys particularly, we need a role model. We need to be able to look at someone that we can grow up to be like, to emulate. We also need a group. You know, men are supposed to be strong and independent, and we don't cry, and all of those sorts of things. All of it is nonsense, but that's the way our cultures all around the world, we all have that same stereotypical understanding, so that we don't address these problems of boys and men. All men need a group. We need to be attached to a team, an organization, something that gives us a sense of identity, not just, I want to be like that, but I feel strength in numbers. I feel strong. I feel supported by my brothers. If that happens to be a militia, if that happens to be drug trade, a young guide has no concept. I'm coming from poverty. I don't have parents that I've had the sense of support from. Maybe these people will give me a sense of who I am and why I am, and give me a sense of love, appreciation, and belonging, even though it is false. We know on this side, boys don't know that. Young girls don't know that. It's simply a way out of their pain. And so we are all nodding. We are all looking at this and saying, yes, absolutely. And Aman, you just asked the biggest question of all. Here we are at now 1/2 hour left in our 2-hour time together. I must say thank you so much. I am the one person in this group that has not been, for most of my life, associated with human trafficking. But I will say that all of my life, musician, I've been trying to get in the way of trafficking, to try and give a sense of meaning and hope and empowerment, if you will, to disadvantaged kids through the arts and through good counseling, so that they can avoid the traps that are being set for them all around. Now, I would like to open this to questions from everyone, and that is quite simply this. Sylvia, Liz, Vishnu, Aman, Jennifer, also, if you're still with us, would you please respond to anything and ask questions of each other? You have now here resources from literally around the world. And as we each struggle with each other's accents, thank you for all holding in there. We are realizing a commonality, just the basic human need for valuing life. So are there questions or are there observations that you can direct to other members of this panel? Just feel free to open your mic and jump in. I would love that to be the case. I open the floor to your questions. Please question all of us. Anyone?
My question with Ola.
Question to Ola, go for it.
Yeah, that from how long you are working in this field, and is it your first time to organize such type of platform to discuss on this issue, or on regular interval you are organizing such type of activities?
You're muted. There you go.
Aman, thank you very much. This is not my first time about my involvement in human trafficking. this is the second global conversation that we are having. We had the first one in July. It was in August 2021. I think so, Sylvia. That is when
Yes,
we met. Yeah, August
yes.
2021. 2022, I had a little bit of partnership with the Bella Levy Foundation based in the US. They have designed a kind of like an app that can send like a tracking device for anyone who is being captured or who's been trafficked. I think Ishmael, you were with Bella when she shared that. You remember when she came aboard. So we work hand in hand with the Bella Levy Foundation, who has produce a tracking device. So in case of trafficking, with the device, it can trigger where you are being trafficked and you can seek help or get help immediately. So that was what we worked with in 2022. But in 2023, I was looking at a broader perspective of bringing global experts together. And I wanted like a small group, unlike the one we had the other time, that we couldn't really have resolutions and synopses from our discussions. Like what we have today is very rich. You understand? So this is, and it's going to be ongoing. I have several topics that one can look at, like human trafficking, the concept of war and armed conflict as it impacts boys and men, which Joseph Force talked about. That's another area we have not really delved into. And for the experience of Sylvia and Vishnu, and also as I don't know, Jeff Sadler is here. Maybe we can also try and look at this area of human trafficking in the context of war and armed conflicts. How is this affecting the collectives, especially men? Because when you look at men in this part, you see that they are more trafficked. For instance, let me give you a scenario that is happening currently in West Africa. If you don't know, there might be a possible war going on in West Africa any moment from now because of Niger and being taken over by the military, and the military has just planned a coup. They are taking over, and the economic community of West African states are against this, and the West, Russia, France, Russia is against Russia, France, America, Germany, UK, they are at war with Russia and the other part because of the uranium found in Niger. And what is happening right now? A lot of young men now are now volunteering themselves to go into the military to fight this war. And a lot have been captured to go into the military, traffic into it, just to protect their country, or other in Mali, in Burkina Faso, they have formed a pact, to fight the other. Where are these soldiers coming from? Where are these military men coming from? These are young boys being trafficked to go and fight the war. So Aman, there's a whole lot we will continue to do on the issue of human trafficking. And one of the things that we look at January and August as our platform where we discuss human trafficking issues. So in January, again, we'll come up with another topic that we'll address. Then in August, again, we'll have other topics we will address. But we're seeking a global platform, especially for the young men and young boys that are being trafficked all over the world right now. So we are not saying this is, like Liz said, it's not about gender. It's about a cancer in the human race that we need to kill, or we need to put a stop to.
Definitely, Ola. I just appreciate the things which you are doing. And I have one query from Eliza. Should I ask?
Yeah, Liz. Yeah, you can ask Lisa a question.
Yeah, because since you are a survivor and now you are working as a social worker and being a female survivor, that what are the things and what are your experiences in context of male survivor or male victims, which whenever you are working with them, what are the problems and what are the challenges you used to face to just making that male victims in streamline or mainstreaming them?
So, so there was 2 survivors of human trafficking that actually came forth and told me that their experiences, what, being in this field. The first one was when I was working at a treatment facility, and I was sharing my story, and then he asked to talk to me afterwards, and then he explained to me his situation, and then I told him, I said, yeah, you've experienced human trafficking. And so, but his barriers was because he felt like people weren't going to believe him, and he felt like because he was a man that he wasn't supposed to, like, that doesn't happen to men, right? It doesn't happen to them. They have a sense of expectation where they're supposed to protect themselves. They're not weak. So there was a lot of stuff that came up in the conversation where he felt this was a barrier for him to talk about it. So when he heard me, plus he didn't even know he was being trafficked. He didn't know that was trafficking. So when he heard my story, that's where he decided, okay, let me talk to her, but he wanted to do it privately because he didn't want other people in the treatment facility to see him talk to me about it. And so, and then after he spoke, there was a sense of relief for him. He actually, and a lot of this was deep rooted issues that he's been dealing with for a very long time, which caused a lot of his mental health. And so, and he had anxiety attacks all the time while he was in the treatment facility. So when he talked about this, it was a sense of relief for him. He was able to cry, be emotional, be vulnerable in a safe setting and get it out. And it really helped with his anxiety. It helped for him not to have so much panic attacks. And so that's why it's when this trauma happens to you and you keep it a secret and you're carrying this burden by yourself, there's so much mental health diagnosis or mental health issues that can come from that, can manifest from that when you don't talk about it. Second survivor I spoke with, again, I shared my story in a public setting, and he came up to me afterwards. He wasn't really quiet about it. There was people around, but he came up to me and spoke to me, saying, hey, I've experienced that as well. And he wanted to tell me that he was grateful that I was sharing my story. And I invited him and said, hey, even though Redemption House in the Bay Area serves women, 18 and older, I was like, we can still give you the support you need. We can still help you, give you a safe space to talk about your trauma. And when you're ready, you can share on a public platform, because I already know we need more men and boys to step up and share their stories. So I told him, I was like, we'll support you and give you platforms to share when you're ready. And he felt a sense of empowerment for that. I still haven't heard from him, but the fact that door is open and I planted that seed of like, hey, we're here for you and we're going to give you that safe space to talk about it. It gives them a sense of empowerment, and that setting those high expectations for survivors, that spirit trafficking, especially for men, knowing that there is an obligation there, like knowing that they can make a huge difference with their pain, gives them an opportunity to make that difference when they're ready.
Liz, thank you.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
But 1 second, Vishnu, I'm going to just say one thing first. As Vishnu is going to be our next talker, would each of you also take the opportunity to go to the chat and please give your name, your contact information, so that as we can harvest that and be resources for and with each other.
Just a minute. I'm very much interested to discuss about the Elizabeth, because of I'm also studying in the survivor in the context of Nepal in my PhD degree. Yet now I'm also taking all the survivor story, and I see in my research I have a 5 perspective I see in that kind of the survivor. One is good practice in the rehabilitation center. What are the good practices they are follow the rehabilitation center? Second one, a difficult faced by the survivor. What are the difficult faced by the survivor? And third one, what are the significant socio-cultural pattern in the resilience? And fourth one, what are the coping strategy to become resilience? Fifth one, what are the good perspective, social, cultural, family, and peer group? If you don't mind, Elizabeth, if you don't mind, I have already taken in the Nepalese content like 11 survival in the story in my study, because I'm very much concerned about my ethical consideration. If you don't mind, if you provide your story, I'm going to comparative study your story and Nepalese content story, and to comparative study what are the difference and what are the significant role in the developing country and the developed country. I'm included. If you provide me,
Yeah.
if so, it is very much benefited for the discuss in the another forum. We have another time. That's why we have making the one day. If we have a making the one day, we have making the good intervention project too. We all have to good intervention project too, because of discussion is not important is the intervention. We have to eradicate it. We must work in the intervention, and we must resilience for the survivor. That's why I would like to request you provide your story. Can I get it?
Yeah, thank you,
And
Vishnu. Thank you, Vishnu. Like you said, that will be worked upon. Just leave your email address, and whoever wants to
yeah.
reach you, I will coordinate all of that and get across to you. Rachel, thank you for joining us. Where you're joining us from, we appreciate you. And we have the big man in the house, which is the founder of the International Men's Day, in person of Jerome Tiloxin, all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. So Jerome, Dr. Jerome, glad to have you here. And he's been a global advocate for men and boys for over close to 20 something years. So maybe he has 1 minute to share with us. Ross, you may have to call him, check him aboard. And I want Jen. Jen is here. I think the other guy has left. The other man that joined us from Portugal. So each and every one of you is expected to make maybe 1 minute contribution to this conversation. Thank you, Ross. It's all yours.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Jerome is hearing us. I've asked him to unmute, and possibly you can send him a text. I don't have that availability right now.
Hey, Russ.
I think
you
Russ,
go
I have
ahead.
a quick
Ishmael.
question, if that's okay. This is a question for the whole panelists. Compassion fatigue is a real thing. And how do you take care of your mental health to keep doing what you're doing with the great work you're doing? This is for everybody.
And can I add one layer to that? How do you take care of yourself? And you mentioned mental health. Those of us who are in the mental health field have come to realize that there is almost no mental health condition which doesn't have its root cause problem as emotional health. It's our emotional realities that drive our behaviors and thoughts. So let me echo, please, Ishmael's request. How do you deal as an activist? How do you deal with the drain, with the fatigue, the passion fatigue that you must address? It is your own emotional challenge as we deal with this reality. How do you do that? Just jump on in, join, please.
It is a real thing, and I'm so glad you brought it up, Dr. Kumar. I wanted to mention that it is a real thing, and it is often framed clinically and frontline in the field as vicarious trauma. So as we work with survivors of this most heinous crime, this evil crime, it is really exhausting at times. And despite our excellent trainings, able to be boundaried, innate abilities, support of highly trained and skilled clients and colleagues, team members, we are still not unscathed because of the nature and the depth and the complexities of the traumatic experiences that the people we are serving show up with. And we do this oftentimes day in and day out over many, many years. I was so thankful to have come back in recent weeks from a retreat where there was such great discussion about mental health, but not just the discussion, but the actual support of giving tangible tools to handle and manage this secondary trauma. I would say in terms of solutions, make sure, if you haven't already, in your practices, in your agencies and teams, make sure that you have a solid critical incident stress debriefing protocol and follow it, take it seriously. I have worked in many departments, police departments especially, that did not take this serious, but we were required as part of our accreditation and mandate to have a CISD protocol. And so oftentimes in the last few departments I've worked, I was the one that was initiating the debriefing. And yet, you know, at the end of that debriefing, there wasn't always somebody to debrief me. And so like, I feel like I carried that load so often, and that became taxing mentally. This work is so complex and difficult and just rife with evil at times, that it is impossible to come out of it unscathed. And so being able to preserve and protect our mental health and making sure that the people that we work with on our teams have the same support and ability to say like, look, I need some help, or I'm not feeling so good, or I'm not sleeping well, or, you know, I'm having flashbacks, or whatever it is, like to feel like you can have these discussions openly and candidly within your organizations and not feel like this judgment or stigma. I've done taught a workshop for many years for law enforcement around burnout. and this is like 20 years ongoing. And the first year it was called self-preservation. Several years later, it moved to several other things. But the point is, the same people that were attending the workshops and the conferences were the same folks that were really burned out. And so then it became like this conference about, you know, at the end I called it fried and refried, now what? You know, like, how do we continuously go through the rigors of this job and this work? And what I say for me is my life's mission. And how do I maintain what I say my arches, my spiritual arches, my physical arches, my emotional ability and capacity to remain strong, stalwart, and solid in my ability to serve our people the best way possible, maintaining a best practice and trauma-informed approach, but still be resolute ourselves. And I think just back to the ability to support each other, to take away stigmas, to make sure from the top of our administration down to our frontline officers or whoever we're working with, that we're able to talk regularly about what we're processing, and not just the actual feelings, but the cases, and taking that critical incident stress debriefing seriously, and the reminder that vicarious trauma, or secondary trauma as it's known, is prevalent in this work, despite your strength, your education, your best efforts. And we must be continually supported in that part of our work, enabled so that we can be resolute, but also so that we can best serve those that are most vulnerable.
You know, we all carry a history of some sort of trauma or disagreement or self-judgment. And so often we are working with people in their situations. And yes, we're experiencing burnout. But one of the things that we sometimes think is it's because of the work. I'm taking on all the anxiety of the people I'm serving, and it's good, but it's killing me. One of the things we have to realize is that as much as we are addressing those other people's issues, their issues are triggering unmet issues in ourselves. All of us have come to adulthood unprepared to deal with all the depth around us, because most of us have really not dealt with our own insides. So right. Whatever is necessary to do that self-care. As you are in the field, you don't wait till burnout. Do whatever's necessary before you get to burnout. It's as if we're trying to say, what can we do to get in the way of vulnerability? of poverty, of all of those contributing factors. Well, burnout has contributing factors, and it's our own young experiences and PTSD that we all carry. So we are all works in progress, and this whole study is a work in progress. We're getting towards the end, and none of us would be satisfied for a moment if this was it. If you have not shared your contact information in the chat, please do it now, or just contact Ola at bmanadvocacy.org or at Gmail, and allow us to continue not just the conversation, but the activism. It's necessary to actually get in the field, work side by side, hand in hand, arm in arm with those in the countries we live in, and share that expertise with the rest of us so that we can together become a community that cannot allow this. 50 years ago, the statement was, I have a dream. Well, I think we all have a dream. And that dream needs people who are willing to march on Washington, march to Selma, do what's necessary to join arm in arm and support each other as we address the realities of these problems. Ola, thank you for being the guide and the inspiration behind all of this. You have addressed all of the problems in Nigeria as much as they say, change one person, you've changed the world. You have certainly changed many worlds, Ola, through your literacy, through your sports mentorship, through all the programs from mathematics to addressing fatherhood, boyhood, that transition, all of the unspoken things you and BMAN have been addressing. So my hat is off to you, and bravo. I also wish, before I just back off, to say bravo and thank you to all of you. Please know that we do support you. In a manner of speaking, we are all literally, I mean, I look into the eyes of each person here, I'm looking into the eyes of a literal brother and sister. All conditions of gender, all conditions of culture are so secondary. They are important to us because those are the people we deal with, but for the rest of us, we all share in the cause, in the reality, and we need to be in the trenches and survive ourselves. So thank you. You are all inspirations, great inspirations to me and to the rest of us. Let's continue this connection and our activity. Ola, please.
Oh, thank you, Ross. This is very, very great day for me, and I appreciate everyone for joining in. I appreciate your time, your contributions, all of your experiences, bringing this to the bear to understand the real challenges before us and what we all can do collectively to address the demand side dynamics of human trafficking. In the course of this conversation, I had two new people joining us. We have Thierry Ventura. Thank you for joining us. We have Rachel Weiser. Rachel, please, where are you joining us from? Will you unmute yourself so that we can have a word from you and where you are joining us from?
I'm at a work
Jenny.
conference.
Hi, Rachel. Can you unmute yourself? You're muted.
Sorry, I
Ola.
can't tell if I'm unmuted or not. Can you hear me?
We hear
Yes,
you now. Yes.
hear you.
Oh,
Yes, we
hi.
can hear you, Rachel.
I'm at a work conference in Reno, Nevada. Joining you from there, a guest of Sylvia. She's amazing.
She's amazing. Thank you for saying that. Thierry, thank you for joining us. Can we meet you, Ventura?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Yeah, I think, can we meet you? Where are you joining us from?
Hi, I'm Tiari. I'm a friend of Sylvia Uilani. And currently I'm in Texas, visiting family.
Okay. Okay. We're glad to have you. And we're actually coming to the end of today's conversation. It's been very rich. It's been very great. If you don't mind to have synopses, to see the videos, you may kindly please leave your email address in the chat box and we will get the entire conversation to you so you can watch it again and again when it's ready. Oh, Gabby, thank you for joining us again. Dr. Jerome, are you there from Trinidad to give us one word before we close? And I saw Jennifer came in briefly and she's off the camera now. I just want to let every one of you know that this is our collective cause. And until we take steps at our individual levels and at our collective levels to address this will remain with all of us for a very, very long time. And we can put a stop to it. Because I believe this was not the ideal thing for the human race. But whatever it is, we all can be a solution. On our part as an organization, we're doing the very best we could to ensure that we enlighten, educate young men or whatever from at an early age to understand the value of self-importance. You know, when you teach a child to understand how important he is in the human existence, he would definitely recognize that I have been captured when he's been captured. And having said all of this, I would like to keep a close relationship with you. That's so dearing to me and the work that we do. So that collectively, we not only discuss as an advocate, but we continue to relate as friends. That we show love, become an inspiration, create a value chain of impact, and give what we have here, educate the people around the world about human trafficking. I appreciate you all. I want to thank you for your time. And I look forward to connecting with you individually. And I hope that this will be done in the shortest time possible. For me,
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for me, I like to close conversation like this with the greatest question I've ever asked myself growing up. What is the ultimate purpose of life? Take a deep thinking about that. What is the ultimate purpose of life? And in my quest to get an answer, I find the ultimate purpose of life is to live, L-I-V-E. And the next question is, how do I live? And the answer is simple. The first L, you love others. If you love, you won't traffic anybody. It's impossible for you to become a human trafficker if you actually demonstrate love for the collectives of our human existence. Number two, let your life inspire others. That's the I in there. Become an inspiration in your neighborhood, in your country, wherever you find yourself. Let your life bring life into the dying situation in your country. And the V is value, create values. And that is where to serve comes in the equation. You are here to serve. And how do you serve? You create a value chain. You become valuable to the human existence. The seat you are sitting on now is a value added to our collectives. The clothes you are putting on It's a value added to our collectives. The car you drive, it's a value added to our collective. And in reality, if your life is not an added value to the collectives, you have come to rob the world of your existence. And finally, educate others. Now, somebody put it this way. Said, if you are planning your life for a year, you plant a corn. If you are planning your life for 10 years, a decade, you plant a tree. But if you are planning for a lifetime, educate children, educate the next generation. Make sure you bring out the potential of the younger generations that you interact with on a regular basis. This will also bring down the issue of human trafficking. With that being said, I love you so dear, and I want to appreciate your time with us today. I look forward to connecting with all of you, and I bring blessings from Africa, and I send blessings to you. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Ola. And thank you all for joining us today.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.